Hey guys, wanted to go ahead and do a re-review of the Aful Explorer and to go from there. Before I go on further, I'm going to go and put some notes on the screen. Please note that the notes are a little bit different from the video, but I'll try to summarize what's in the notes in this video. Okay, let's get right into it. I'm actually glad I got a chance to re-review this because there's some new information that I'm getting now that I've actually went through these. This is very, very ear tip dependent. Very ear tip dependent. So depending on which ear tip you use, it's going to vastly change the sound. And I kind of want to talk about what each of these kind of do, but it's hard to do this review format because these are different ear tips, so I have to go by category. All right, so let's just get right into it. Let's talk bass. I would say the bass here, I would give it comfortably a grade of B. It's not overpowering, it doesn't have a lot of impact and power, but it's good enough, it's not anemic. I actually do prefer the bass of Volume S and the bass of Tops Pro and the bass of Cadenza 4 over these, and Swan Envy, so this is definitely teetering in that low B range. However, depending on which ear tip you use, there are some differences in how the bass and sub bass comes off, and you are going to get a penalty depending on what you choose. So let's talk sub bass. So if you use the so what I also want to say is this: this IEM sounded like absolute dog shit on the stock ear tips that I had here. So I think that's why, like, vocals sounded really thin on here. When I was monitoring it with my own voice, it sounded really thin here. So what I began to understand is don't use the stock ear tips. Okay, so basically, to me, I began to tinker with 3 different ear tips, and each of these ear tips have different pros and cons. There are definitely some. Okay, so if you choose the KBear 7 ear tips, then the bass will be more correct. If you choose the HE Sonics, your sub bass is going to be more below correct. And then if you choose Kiwi Ears Flex, it's going to be more about correct sort of sub bass in the background. Okay, now let's start talking female vocals. So when it comes to female vocals, they were a little thin on the stock ear tips. And I remember thinking to myself, like, it doesn't sound that good. It's kind of like a low B. Actually, it sounds like kind of like a... I remember thinking genuinely, I was like, I don't think these are even better than like Cadenza V2, which is like $40. And I was like, I don't think these are even better than the Red Lion, which is $20. Until I actually started to swap ear tips. So when I swapped ear tips, you get different strengths and different weaknesses depending on what happens. And I kind of want to talk about it with female vocals and with different songs. So with the Kiwi Ears Flex, what happens is the vocals are substantially better. They improve by quite a bit. But what happens is the vocals, the singer is lost in the mix. That's what happens with with this. What I also noticed is that on some tracks, and I've never seen this before with the Kiwi Ears Flex, there's like this digital clap sound in the song XG New Dance. Like this, I'll play it for a few seconds. It's like this, but like it really is painful with the Kiwi Ears Flex ear tips on that song, but none of the other ear tips have that penalty, which is bizarre. So it's not specific to the IEM, or maybe it is, but it definitely is accentuated with the Kiwi Ears Flex. With the Kiwi Ears, with the KBear 7 ear tips, vocals are nice and full, and they're really, really well done. But again, the vocals get lost in the mix. With the HE Sonics, they're slightly thinner, but then now the vocals are a little bit more balanced, so to say. The other thing I want to talk about is, I would say, male vocals. So, interesting thing to note is when I actually when I listened to Justin's voice on the stock ear tips, he sounded pretty thin. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound good. Then what I did was I swapped and 2 different ear tips. So he sounds really good on the KBear 7 and on the Kiwi Ears Flex ear tips. He sounds pretty much really, really good on here. But like I said, you get some penalties in different areas. But the HE Sonics, he sounds pretty good, but just a sliver thin. So, and it's kind of interesting. What I did was I actually did this with my own voice. I actually got a microphone, and then I wore this, and I tried different ear tips. So with the stock ear tips, my voice sounded thin and nasally, and just not good. With the HE Sonics, my voice is fuller. It's much fuller than stock ear tips. It is still a little thin, slightly radio-y kind of, and a little bit, but it still sounds pretty much just like me, but it loses a little bit of warmth. With the KBR 7 and with the KBR Flex, my voice sounds nice and full and warm. So this does, with these ear tips, these are good for male vocals, but you take a hit. With Soundstage, it's a joke, absolute joke. This feels small, but with at least with the HE Sonics, these bring this up to about average in Soundstage. But in general, this felt very small. As a point of reference, if I thought the Tops Pro felt wide, and I thought the Cadenza 4 felt pretty wide, and then I felt the Volume S was kind of coming around. Well, this is smaller than all those, right? So this is definitely smaller in Soundstage compared to those. So the other thing I want to talk about is Sibilance.
Gotta go somewhere, so can we make this quick?
Season 7, Episode 6 of Seinfeld.
D214 is the best mic.
What I noticed is when you use the HE Sonics, it is a little bit more sharp in Sibilance, but ever so slightly, but it's still pretty smooth. So at regular volume, you're not going to get much Sibilance, but at higher volume, it gets to around medium. And with the One High by Edward Smith. But overall, it's about medium Sibilance at high volume and practically zero at low volume. With the QEars Flex, with the KBR 7 ear tips, it's a little bit even less than that. So you get less Sibilance on regular volume, and it's about like medium Sibilance when you crank it up. So this is actually pretty okay when it comes to Sibilance. So overall, what I would say is don't use the stock ear tips, and you are every ear tip obviously has different penalties, but they are much more prevalent here. In other words, I don't really see a situation where you can get everything, or maybe I don't know it yet.